Very good. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the May 2025 meeting of Manhattan Community Board 1's Land Use, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee. We have two items on our agenda, no resolutions, but presentation on a forthcoming land use application is first. From 33 Thomas Street, the AT&T building. We have a group of presenters. I think John Popham, counsel for the soon-to-be applicant, and you can maybe start us off by sort of orienting the committee where you are in that process. We'll perhaps introduce everyone and get us going.
Sure.
Great.
So can we load the, we can just load it right up. I'll just, I'll just come up to the front here, if that's okay?
Sure.
And we just need to take some notes. Great. Hi, everybody. I'm John Popham with the law firm of Duane Morris, representing AT&T in the potential subdivision and sale of the plaza area of the property that they own at 33 Thomas Street, which I'm sure you're all aware of the site and of the building. And in connection with the potential subdivision and sale, there will be several filings that we'll make before the Department of City Planning shortly. And before we did that, before we made any kind of an official filing, we wanted to come before the Land Use Subcommittee of Community Board 1 and just sort of take the temperature, get a feel, and get all of your comments and begin to work with the Community Board. So working and presenting with me today and working on behalf of AT&T on these potential filings, we have the project architect, which is Ziskovich Architects, and Larry Rosenblum is representing Ziskovich. And one of the filings will be for a public plaza, Pops Plaza. And of course, we have the best in the business, Rick Parisi from MPFP here, and he'll also be presenting as part of the presentation today. And his colleague, Anna Balisaria, is here as well. And so, next slide. So just with respect to an agenda of, I think, we'll start off the presentation. I'll give a little site description, which I know you know the property already, but a site description, and then we'll go into a little bit of the site history, which it's important to explain the site history because it leads into the rationale for the sale. Why is AT&T selling a piece of this property, the plaza area? And then if we're going to sell the property, AT&T says, can we sort of figure out how to maximize the development potential of the sale for a future developer to own it, which any property owner would do. And then I'll go through, so in order to maximize the development potential before it goes to sale, what are the actions that are necessary at city planning in order to make that come to pass? And quite frankly, the reason why we're here to discuss with you. And then after I'm done with all my boring legal words, I'm going to turn it over to the development crew who will sort of bring the whole presentation to life. Rick and Anna will go first, and they'll sort of go through the slides of the public plaza design that we've made. And then Larry will follow it up, showing the proposed envelope that would accompany the public plaza. And then, do you want me to, I could probably just take that and just operate it. Continue. All right. So, okay, so just to set the property, so we all know this is the block, this is the survey of the block, this is the block. So the 1833 Thomas Street fronts Ward Street to the north, it's bounded by Thomas Street to the south, Church Street to the west. It's got, the property is about 65,000 square feet of lot area, takes up about 75% of the block. There are 3 properties that are not controlled or owned by AT&T that front Broadway, 2 of which are landmark buildings designated as landmarks. And this is the zoning map, of course. This is the block that the property is located on. It's partially in a C64, partially in a C64. A contextual difference.
Hello?
Itself.
Hello?
I know.
You're good. Keep going.
And then just the detail of the blocks. Again, this is the block on the tax map. And we've we've
Hello?
outlined the area of the block. And you can see that.
Make that larger. Apologies. That may be where Joe's going because I can barely see it as well. Can you?
Sure, hang on one second.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. And so of the property, about 75% or 57, more than that, 57,000 square feet of the 65,000 square foot lot is located in the C64 zone, and the other 8,000, more or less 8,000 square feet of the 65,000 square foot lot parcel is in a C64A zone, and that's the zoning district boundary line. It froze. If you could just advance it then. That'll probably just take a minute. Thank you. Happens to me every day, 5 times a day.
Don't bill it?
You said about 80% is C64. Right?
Yeah, about 80, 85 actually.
85.
You might
So
need
we're-
to reset it before it advances to the next slide. Reset it to
Yeah,
the
we have-
size you had.
Maybe increasing the size had an effect on it.
Sean, while we're waiting, could you from my, the difference between the C64 and 64A? I'm not familiar with those terms.
Sure, so a C64A is a contextual zoning district that, and I'm actually gonna get to this later in the presentation, but
I'd like to wait.
okay. So a sailor walks into a bar.
It's C64.
C64 where that use is permitted.
Is it a heavy file?
Should I advance it? Can I advance it?
Oh, no, no, you still got the eye.
Oh,
Yeah, if you keep hitting it, it's just gonna,
no,
you're gonna get it mad. While we're waiting, could you tell us the history of the plaza? How much of a give back was that to the community? How many extra, floors did you get on the AT&T building?
So there was no plaza bonus taken in the development of the AT&T building in 1967. They could have utilized it, but for their purposes, for the purpose of the building being built, the communication building, they didn't need the bonus. So it's not a Pops Plaza, it's just a private plaza, and that's why it's open and closed, sort of at the whim of AT&T.
Maybe been closed late, the last few years, but used as a garage, free garage for some of the workers there.
Yeah, well, since November, it reopened. They did a Tuesday and Thursday, this is what I'm told, Tuesday and Thursday between the lunch hours, 11 and 2, it is open to the public. They did go in and they did repave, they did some paving work in the last fall, would that have been fall? Yes, and then they reopened it. So Tuesday and Thursday is the time.
Yeah, this file's huge.
Is
so
this
we have
because of the
been-
scaling of it? Or were we
Yeah, we'll push it out, but
Maybe we bring it back to work.
bring it back down to?
we're having trouble even getting it to open in the first place.
Oh.
It's thick.
If I hook up, then I can go into Zoom and then I can share.
I think that could work, yeah.
Yeah, sure. Just give me a minute. You have Wi-Fi in
I have it on OneDrive too.
here? Oh,
Actually, hey, Patrick, if you make me a co-host, I'll
Yeah.
try and do it from here.
Okay.
okay, do that. Yes.
I'm gonna make you the presenter, Tammy.
So I'm asking you first.
I think so.
It's, Manhattan CV1, capital M.
It's the
Capital
same,
B. Capital M.
same night as the mayor and debate watch party. But I still think
Capital C, capital B.
Who's ever talking online, I could hear you super clear, just as a heads up. I don't know what you're talking about. Sounds like elections, but yeah, be careful.
no, it wasn't. No, it
Not
wasn't. We're talking
super
about
clear
you,
then.
Tammy.
Make it
Talking
even
about-
clearer. Yes.
Mhm. I'm looking for where the file is just to find it for tonight. So apologies. It's taking me a little bit longer.
Sammy, were you on an email? It's like 5:11 p.m. with the link.
Nah, I'm looking. I got it. Okay.
Web browser.
But you can't go full scale and Zoom. No. And you should try it.
Good. We're gonna try it this way. From the
Oh,
web browser. This is probably is, I don't know if we can hit that plus. Okay.
Okay, I found it. I got
So
it.
Tammy, we have it up
Okay.
for the moment, but
If not,
thank you.
I can help you.
Just in case we crash, Tammy.
I'm a good backup.
Keep on the next.
If we can just advance it. And then one more. So, and one more. Okay, so then widening out the area a little bit more, of course, this is the site. So to the north, to the south, to the west, to the east, the surrounding area is all zoned C6, just like the property is. Different variations, permutations of C6, C64, C62A, C63A, C64A, all permutations of C6, of a C6 zone. And as you were asking me before, so a C6 zone is a high density, sort of metropolitan kind of an area, a lot of hustle bustle, a wide variety of commercial uses and residential uses, permitted community uses. C64 zones carry an FAR of 10.0, base FAR of 10.0. So the big development, before the recent City of Yes, that's the biggest development more or less you could do in the city of New York, other than in the special Midtown district. And the developments in the area are consistent with their zoning. Orange is mixed use, red is commercial development. And so you can see commercial, C6, the predominant development is either mixed use or commercial. And the buildings in the area range from, there's a 50-story building across the street from the property, down to, I think, a two-story walk-up on the same block, and six-story walk-ups, on the same block as the 50-story building, and six-story walk-ups on Broadway on the same block. So but it's a hustle bustle district, and it's developed consistent with its zoning. Next slide. So that's a little bit of setting the property with respect to the history of the property, and then leading into the rationale. Why is it that AT&T wants to sell the plaza? So the AT&T building that we all know and some love was developed in 1967. It was developed as a major telecommunication building. It receives and forwards calls that come not only in from the city of New York, but also the surrounding area nationally and internationally. The building stands 535 feet in the air. It's got 597,000 square feet of floor area, more or less. The building was built, this building, we're here to talk about discretionary actions for the plaza. The building itself was built pursuant to a discretionary action. It was built pursuant to a special permit for the tower portion of the building, which is above the 11th floor. And the special permit allowed for a increase in the area of penetration of the tower within 50 feet of a narrow street, Thompson Worth Street, both sides. It was a small discretionary approval, less than 1,000 square feet of increased area penetration of the towers onto the narrow streets. Interestingly enough, with the widening of Worth Street, that special permit would no longer be required today. So the plaza, as we were talking about before, the other improvement, if you call it that, if you would, on the site is the plaza. It's about a 21,000 square foot plaza. And that plaza could have received a bonus. It could have been dedicated to the city and received a bonus. But as I said, the purpose of the inside of the building, which was to sort of exchange calls, didn't require any bigger of a building than just what the special permit gave them. And as a result, no public plaza was taken, no zoning bonus was taken for the plaza. And as a result, the site, believe it or not, as big as the building is, the site is underbuilt, means there's available floor area to build more as of right. Next slide.
How much?
Next slide. So I'm going to show you, that's good. We're like this. So FAR calculation. So in C6 zones, as we talk, the maximum base FAR is 10.0. If you take the lot area of the property, 65,000 square feet, and multiply it by that 10.0, you've got a maximum permitted base floor area of 650,000 more or less square feet. As I indicated, the building is built to 597,000 square feet. No plaza bonus was used. And as a result, if you subtract 597,000 square feet from 650,000 square feet, the available floor area as of right, if that plaza area was sold today, would be 53,000 at 643 square feet.
That's additional.
That's available. That's exactly, that's what's available. Next slide. So a little bit more about the plaza now, which is the subject of the presentation. So it's very unusual that a new development minus a bonus, some kind of a bonus for sort of dedicating space to the public good. It's very unusual that a new development would leave a huge 20,000 square foot open space undeveloped, even as it had 50,000 square feet developed more on it. But it was never AT&T's intention. This is going to lead into the rationale of why the sale now. It was never AT&T's intention to use this plaza area. It really wasn't even their intention to make it, and quite frankly and honestly, to make it a public plaza. And not to, it just, that wasn't their goal. If it would have been their goal, they would have had to sort of ascribe to or subject themselves to the public plaza requirements that would have beautified this plaza. There would have been sort of more trees and more inviting amenities, and it just would have looked less bare than it is today. Likewise, it would have been operational all the time. That's pursuant to the public plaza regulations. But AT&T's intention was to preserve open space in the event that its telecommunication operation needed to be expanded. In other words, they kept this open space so that they could either enlarge the building or expand the building to have more supercomputers sending out more calls, exchanging more calls. It turns out that through the decades, they didn't need that because everyone knows technology has shrunk. So what they used to need a full, say a full floor to advance their telecommunication needs. Now they can do the same thing in the size of a large conference room. And so when they realized some years ago that they weren't going to need any more of the plaza to expand the building, they decided that they were going to sell the plaza area, subdivide it and sell it, you know, because it was of no more use to them. Next slide. And so this is just a screen that shows what I'm talking about in terms of how the building was built underneath. So this is the AT&T building. Underneath the AT&T building are 3 subcellar levels. And those subcellar levels extend, see this lip, it extends underneath, that's the plaza, and it extends underneath, extends underneath the plaza. And so this is the columnar grid of the foundation of the founding of this building. And so you can see that the columnar grid of the building, which is up to this red line, is of a particular pattern that then extends underneath the lip of the plaza, And so the building was actually built. It was contemplated that the building someday may need to be extended to heavy building with heavy columns in a particular grid that would carry the loads similar to the load of the existing AT&T building. And so it could have been moved over into the plaza. Don't need it anymore. And as a result, now for sale. Next slide. So once AT&T decided that they were going to sell the property, they hired Dwayne Marr, they hired my firm and their other building consultants to consider the site and to consider to analyze how to maximize the development potential on the property, not the whole property, just the plaza area for sale. They also asked us not only think about how to increase the potential of development, but how are we going to market this when we finally take this to market? For example, if there are discretionary actions involved, are we just going to write a letter in the marketing package that, hey, this can be done? Or are we, AT&T, going to go to the city, get the approvals beforehand, and then take the whole thing to market as a turnkey administrative approval? And so this is what we considered for almost a year, actually. And next slide. And so our conclusions were as follows. The first thing we wanted to do is we wanted to maintain a plaza. It wasn't altruistic, but it's been there. We knew we had to come to the community board ultimately, as I tell you, and it's a benefit to the community to have the plaza. But again, I don't want to. It wasn't like, you know, it wasn't altruism, but we did want to maintain the plaza. But this time around, we wanted to utilize a zoning bonus. So we wanted to maintain the plaza, but we wanted to generate bonus floor area for the plaza, for the plaza sale piece, through the inclusion of now a public plaza. So now AT&T is interested in a public plaza that will generate floor area, but also subject that space to regulation. It will now meet all the design criteria of public plaza. It will be beautified. It will be more inviting. It will be more interesting. It won't be kind of barren. And then in terms of the public plaza, we had to figure out where to locate it. And so there's a lot went into this. And we decided ultimately to locate the public plaza, Alice is going to kill me, to locate the public plaza in between the AT&T building and the new development. So there'd be a building on one side and interspersed between the plaza with the new building on another side. New building, why a new building? So we designed this, so when you submit an application to build for a plaza, for a zoning bonus, that bonus, you have to show where is that you can generate floor area, but where is that bonus going to go? It's not going to go into the AT&T building. We're not increasing the size of the AT&T building. So that bonus, you show a development where that's going to benefit from the public plaza. And so we also went about designing a development to sort of accommodate the bonus floor area that would be generated from the public plaza. Now, why did we put the plaza in between the two buildings, the existing AT&T building and the proposed building on the Broadway side of the site? It was not really designed, it was only partially from a design perspective. But there were zoning considerations and there were structural considerations. From a zoning consideration, if you remember earlier, I had said that in C6-4 zoning districts, you're able to generate, your zoning regulations allow you to generate bonus floor area through the use of the public plaza. In C6-4A zoning, you are not. You're not allowed to do that. And the reason for that real quick is because C6-4A zoning districts, these contextual zones, they really want to see a streetscape where it's sort of uniform. It's a block and a setback and building goes up. And they're not interested in having gap tooths in a contextual, in an A zone or a B zone. And so it's not permitted there. So just by zoning alone, we had to locate the plaza in an area where we could get the bonus. And that was in the C6-4. And that's why the plaza is located in between the two buildings, because that's where the C6-4, that's where we can generate a bonus. The other issue was structural. It was less of a consideration, but it was a consideration definitely for AT&T, was that because there's a columnar foundation underneath half the plaza, and within that foundation are three cellar levels of intense communications. AT&T didn't want to lose control of the development on top of that, of the subcellar. They were concerned that a developer may not want to use that particular columnar grid, because that's really heavy columns for a much heavier building. They were concerned that maybe columns would have to be shot through the middle of the subcellar level, which is not what they wanted. So for two reasons, it was decided that the plaza would be in between the two buildings, the existing AT&T building and the proposed building, for a developer to develop pursuant to the sale of the plaza area. And then the last sort of piece of our thinking was, if you recall, I explained that the development of the AT&T building in 1967 included a special permit of its own for the penetration of the tower on the narrow streets. So that special permit was approved with its own site plan, as all special permits are. And that site plan did not have a public plaza or a proposed envelope to accommodate the bonus. It was just the plaza that you see in the pictures or when you walk by the property today. So we knew that we were going to, no matter what had to be done, we would also need to go back to city planning as an action and modify the existing 1967 special permit to reflect the plaza and to reflect this new envelope. And so in considering how to market the site, it became clear that it was just going to be too heavy of a burden for a developer to come in and have to do all this stuff. And so AT&T decided that it would sort of go through the process, do a minor modification of the special permit, get the public plaza with the design, with an envelope associated with it, and then take it to market in a much cleaner and more efficient way. And so that's how we decided ultimately that we would deliver the property with turnkey discretionary approval. Next slide. So the actions that will be necessary in order for AT&T to do this, and bear in mind, hopefully I've made it clear, AT&T is not interested in developing this. AT&T is interested in getting these discretionary approvals and taking then the site to market. But what do we need to get? So again, we need to modify the special permit. This was City Planning 19953. That was a special permit in 1967. If the community board likes it, I can share the report, the city planning report with you. That's the first action. Second action is we'll need a plaza certification for a public plaza. That's pursuant to zoning resolution 3778. We will need a special permit, so that's going to send us through Euler. We will need a special permit that special permit, we're gonna have to modify the regulations on public plazas. That's pursuant to section 7491. And there will be two modifications. One modification is the level of the plaza. So because of the subcellar level, as we discussed, because of the subcellar level lipping underneath the existing plaza, it doesn't, so the level of the plaza can be no higher than 2 feet above grade. And the level of the way the top of steel now is about 0.67 or 0.69 feet, less than a foot above, 2 feet above, not grade at the sidewalk, but grade at, the survey grade out in the ocean, wherever the sea level grade is. So we would have to modify the level of the plaza section to be able to have the plaza 0.69 feet above, 2 feet above Navi, whatever it is out in the ocean. And then the second special permit approval we'll need, the second modification is public plazas require tree plantings flush to grade, a certain number of tree plantings flush to grade. So because the plaza, below the plaza is the top of steel of the subcellar level, we can't put as many of the trees that are required flush to grade. Rick will be able to, talk about that shortly, and what we've done to sort of modify it and still sort of compensate for it. But so these are the two sections of the plaza regulations that we would look to modify by the special permit. But with respect to the modification of the special permit, the original special permit, I just want to make clear that what we're submitting, and you'll see it, and Larry will go through it, what we're submitting is an envelope, a building envelope, again, that will accommodate the zoning bonus and the available 50,000 square feet that the site is underbuilt. That envelope is going to get tied into the modification, and it's going to appear as an approval on the new site plan of the original 1967 special permit. And as a result, that envelope it's not set in stone. In other words, we can discuss this. If a developer comes along and says, I don't want that building, they would have to, but the point is that they would have to go back to city planning and again, go through the whole modification process of the 67 special permit to redesign what we've already designed, which we think is a really efficient and well-designed sort of proposition. And we think that it probably is the design that I'm convinced it's what's going to be developed. So next slide. Oh, no, yeah, go ahead. No, that's it. So with that, so that's my lot of words, sorry. So I like it. It's good.
It's good, it was good.
It's
A lot of
fun.
animation.
I like it. Apologies, I'm sorry. So with that, I just want to call Rick up or down. And Rick is going to first go through the sort of bring the plaza to life, what we designed with respect to the plaza, the public plaza. And then Larry will have his time to sort of go through how we designed the envelope that will be tied in to the special permit modification. And then we can have, questions and answers after that.
Why don't we hold the questions till the end, guys?
Okay.
And anything we can do, as you know from being here before,
Yeah.
To get through the presentation.
Yeah,
Thank you.
we get there. What was that?
I think she's reading from the.
But this is from the-
I can't do it. So did I do that? Okay, excellent. So you guys know where we are, right? So Manhattan, district, right? So this is just our map. It's the full block right here, and that's our full site. So as John said, it's a significant site, but there's also a significant plaza. Next. So the interesting thing we're going to show you about, there's a lot of grade change between here. And what John mentioned is that the subcellar is higher than the street level. It's not only, it's stepping the subcellar. So it's about 8 or 9 inches higher at one point, and then it's 2.5 feet higher. So that's why the plaza that's currently there is not level on the Thomas side. On this side, we can massage it to get it level. So, and that's why we're gonna have to see, go through that action. So next. So aerial of the existing, you see these steps here, and that's that wall, and this is where we have about a 30-inch grade change in the structural depth of the cellar. Next. So this is our proposal for the plaza.
I'm sorry, could you just go back and reorient us one more time? Where's the current HE, it's to the left.
Building's
okay.
here. Yeah.
And the wall you just pointed out was.
It's right here. Can you slide up a little?
Okay.
Right there, and I'm gonna show you a 3D before and after, you'll understand it clearly, right? So just going to the next one is our plan. What you see here is the outline of the building. What you see are the green roofs. And those are mostly, some of those are accessible, private open spaces, and some of them will just be the local law, green roof systems, right? There's a courtyard in between the two towers, that's what you're seeing here. There are steps here, right, along this, right? And you see this dash line here. We created this little jewel box component of the ground level, and there's ADA accessibility in here, because that's what gets us above the structural deck. And you'll see it in section. We worked through this with city planning quite a bit. There was really no other way to get any ADA access on this level. And so you'll see it in a before and after. So if you go to the next, that's what we have today. So the structural deck is right underneath where these cars are. It's only like 4 inches underneath that. And so that's our problem. What we did is we turned this wall into a stepped planter with a seat, a bench facing out. We opened this up as stairs, and then we put, if you go to the next one, you'll see, that's the before and after. Right, so these are the steps. That's the built-in seating. The other action we have is all these planters are raised because we only have about 6 inches or so above the structural deck to work with. So those are our two actions for the plaza. Obviously, trees are supposed to be flush, plazas are supposed to be level. It is level on the other side. So if you go to the next one. So this is the before, steps here. Our building will go here. There, and one more, next one. And so there's the building. This is the glass box here, little retail component. The ADA axis is behind it. So if you go to the next drawing, you'll see that. That's the before. It's the after. So ADA access here, under 5%, no handrails, just a general slope up, but it gets us above the structural deck by the time we get back there. So that was our big challenge, and that's one of the actions. So if you go to the next one. This is the other side. So this is at work, and this is all flush. So in working with city planning, by keeping this entire frontage flush, we opened it up in the plaza steps, right? In principle, as you guys know, this is a through block, so it's actually zoned as 2 plazas. We have all that information here, all the technical information if you want to go through it. What we worked with city planning with was to create a central space in the middle that the community could use. There's a trellis there, it opens up, there's a lot of movable seating, and the planters kind of guide you through this, kind of a sawtooth type plaza design. And you'll see that in the aerial that comes up next. So there's the trellis. That's the larger open space. And then these are all built-in seating to the planters. Next. So this is all the technical information. So there's a plaza here, that's the through block. Then all the calculations come up in the next 2 plaza sections, which we don't have to go through much yet.
Can you just go back one, sorry?
Yeah.
Yeah, just
This
give me
one?
1 second,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is the plaza across Thomas Street?
Is there a plaza across Thomas Street?
That from another development?
I think there is.
There is, yeah.
I think there is. Right across top.
Do they line up or are they, can someone?
If you go back, you have to go to the aerial. I don't know that it shows up on that aerial. Yeah. They're not. Get it way up.
Thanks.
The 30 might show it too.
I don't think it's a direct lineup. I
It's,
just-
that's not, yeah, it's over there.
Opposites of it. Okay.
Yeah, they don't line up. So, these are the calculations, shows how the two plazas, work on their own, separate. Right? It's the calculations. That's the ADA access up. We believe this is a cafe retail here, more over there, and that's the big central open space there. This is the 10-foot clear path through. And those are the steps. So it's about 30 in straight change. That's it. We'll go into the
Okay.
building. The last one is there.
Laura, I do see your hand up. We're gonna ask if we hold questions till the end.
Okay.
Thanks.
Yeah,
You guys did a great job of covering 90% of what I had to speak about, so that's great. This is being very efficient. John explained that really you have two different zoning lots here. You have C64 and the C64A. Each of them have their own separate zoning calculation requirements. So we have a lot of technical data that starts to formulate what the envelope is going to be. I'll show you that in the next slide. But what ended up happening is that we take all of the requirements, the rear yard requirements, the setback requirements, the bulk requirements, you end up with the envelope working best as a podium, one-story podium with two slender towers to either side. The taller tower is on Worth Street, is the wider street, and the shorter tower is on Thomas Street. The concept also allows us to create a green area that's on the first floor so that visually what we're doing is we're extending the plaza that Rick described into the actual building itself. So that green area visually you'll see from the plaza to create that separation between the two buildings. A lot of this is driven by a massing study that we did that basically says, here's the requirements for front yard, rear yard, setbacks, maximum height, et cetera. I'll show you that on the next slide. Go, jump in for the next slide. I'm gonna skip this, but John covered all the floor area. This is the key slide, really. So you have Thomas Street, you have Worth Street. Oops,
the appendix.
I checked a little bit there, keep going back. All right, so you have Thomas Street, you have Street, Worth Street being a wide street, Thomas Street being a narrow street. Each of the streets have their own set of regulations as it relates to height, setbacks, et cetera, et cetera. In the case of Worth Street, and by the way, just for, understanding purposes, doing some quick math, if you take John's excess 57,000 square feet from the building and you add in, it was 55,000 square feet from the building, and you add in the 57,000 square foot of the plaza bonus, which was 9,370 square feet times 6. That gives you the total footprint or area of the massive building, which is approximately 103,000 square feet. So what you're seeing is 103,000 square foot building here. What's driving this to a great extent is, as John described, in the contextual district, which is where we have most of the building, they prescribe base heights, they prescribe the setbacks, and they prescribe the maximum height. So we basically had to follow those regulations because, again, keep in mind, we're designing an envelope. Even though it looks like a building, at the end of the day, it's an envelope. And that envelope could be finished in 50 different materials, but what we wanted was a massing that would work well with the plaza, the massing that was consistent with an as-of-right project for this. So what we did is we worked with the maximum base height to get the largest base possible, did the required setbacks. In the case of Worth Street, we went to the maximum height permitted, which was 210 feet. In the case of the other street, we did not do on Thomas, we went to 150 feet as opposed to 185 feet. So we tried to work with the sun in terms of getting maximum daylight into the plaza itself, We felt the other key element in terms of the massing that would be very helpful is that the plaza is not excessively wide. So the idea of having two slender buildings with a gap in between, one-story height building with a green roof created more breathing room in the plaza itself. It just made the plaza feel that much larger. So that's really what's driving the massing of the building. Go to the next slide. Just to give you a sense of, of scale, this is a cross-section taken, or at Elevation Street, taken along Worth Street. The building in pink, right, two towers, relationship to, you can see what some of the street looks like. We're not dealing with a lot of height here. We're dealing with fairly slender buildings. And then obviously in section, you're seeing the same thing here. So contextually, we feel that we've managed to work the zoning and the plaza together to create something that works well together. Between plaza and the building, we think they sort of work together well, especially with that corner that we discussed, which is that we call it the jewel box corner, which leads you into the plaza itself. So visually, you actually can see through that corner. You see the entrance to the plaza, and it creates a connectivity. So we're trying to visually widen the plaza itself.
Which is the AT&T building in this other big dog?
Okay. Anything else from our presenters? Yeah. So first of all, we'll go around the room, virtual room and physical room for any questions for the presenters, but I want to thank the presentation team, the AT&T team. You haven't even submitted your application to the Department of City Planning yet or City Planning Commission, and you've come before us to give a preview, which is something we've been just begging potential developers, potential applicants to do. So kudos to you guys for getting way ahead of the curve on that. That certainly helps with any difficult conversations that we need to have. So Laura had her hand up online. Would you go first, Laura? And then we'll come around the room and see who's.
It's not at her seat.
Disappeared.
Anyway, all right. So compelling, she just decided to give up. Anything else? Okay, Michael, Richard, and Roger.
I've watched this building for 30-odd years. My son and then my grandson went to nursery school right across the street, buckle my shoe. And I just Googled 33 Thomas Street, because we haven't talked at all about that building, and I'm amazed. Was built to withstand a nuclear strike, it was the designated shelter for the President of the United States and other government officials in times of distress. Not much is known, but there are physical lines that connect to the military, the government, international countries, and various other networks that are buried deep within the ground, so the nuclear strike would not disrupt communication. There are also underground bunkers, water filtration systems, air filtrations, for biological warfare, food and supplies to last years. Rumors claiming that underground pathways for the president's motorcade to evacuate elsewhere for safety. Crazy stuff. And there was an article in the New York Times in December of 2024 saying that it's basically an NSA building, national security building, and they monitor, publicly monitoring phone calls and the internet in this building. So I guess my question is, how are you going to build on top of an underground bunker?
Don't believe everything you read in the internet.
That's right. I'm not trying to believe everything.
Right.
But if if the plaza is on top of the bunker, is that correct?
Partially, yes, about half of the block. The lip of the subcellar of the AT&T building extends about to the halfway point.
So are you going to be able to sink, girders, or are you going to be?
Yeah, let me explain. The building itself doesn't come anywhere near the bunker. The bunker is only halfway through the plaza itself. Once we're away from that area, we got a very, very good distance. It may require pilings as opposed to traditional foundations. It may require a lot of sensitivity because of vibration. But the bottom line is that we're going to have substantial distance from the last edge of that underground cellar until the face of the
And
building.
that's why the plaza is in between?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what I was just gonna say.
Yeah.
That's one of the considerations, because you remember I was saying that AT&T doesn't want a development to go on top of it's not.
So I can't believe some of the incident.
I don't know what you're getting on, you don't know how much.
But some.
We're not gonna ask that.
That's not on the bunker, I mean, that, we don't even know the bunker.
Right, it's not really,
That's actually, because we've been down there, and there's actually a lot of equipment down there.
Yeah.
That's, I think the bunker's probably under AT&T, the bunker that you're speaking of.
if there is one.
And the presidential towns.
Full disclosure, I went to work for AT&T in 1967. And I've been in that building and it was pretty incredible
That's.
back in the day. No, I didn't get to the bunker. But one of the problems, which I think you've just addressed, but Michael is certainly getting at, in buildings like these, in the basements, there are often very, very toxic materials that, so if there were any work that had to be done in those basements, you must be prepared for that. It was true in the Western Union building, it's true for these buildings. The materials that went into those buildings, that went into the equipment, is very toxic today. That wasn't my question. That was just a comment. I have two questions. One is a curious question. Has the city of Yes affected your plan in any way? And in
So-
what way has it?
So we were gonna come to you some months ago, and then City of Yes dropped in December. And that scuttled our initial meeting with you. And it took some months, weeks and weeks, to sort of really go through the City of Yes and to determine, A, what were the implications of the new City of Yes, the big affordable housing, the last package, City of Yes on the property. And to that question, the answer to that question was, there was no zoning change and there was no zoning implication change. So what I'm saying is, to that first question, what is the impact of the City of Yes on the exact plans? There was none, because the zoning didn't change, the regulations didn't change the property, and everything that we had designed and everything we sort of worked up until was still able to be developed with the discretionary action of city planning. We then considered, with the new City of Yes, because with the City of Yes comes these new zoning districts. And these new zoning districts, you could build higher, much bigger. And so we began to consider the C611 and C612. Those are brand new zoning districts. The FARs are much higher. We spent weeks going through what is the likelihood that we would get a rezoning, because we'd have to rezone from C64, C64A to C611 or C612. What is the likelihood that that would happen? And what is the time length that that would happen? And we considered factors such as C611 and C612, these new zoning districts, are completely new in the existence of zoning. New York City has never had FAR this high, this bulky. And so there's no precedence for it. And so AT&T in the end, after thinking about all this, decided it's not in AT&T's interest to be the test balloon for a C611 or a C612 zone, and to start all over from scratch, and to start over and go back to city planning, scrap everything we've done, and sort of apply for a rezoning and upzoning that would take a heck of a lot longer in duration than a plaza certification, a special permit. And in the end, AT&T decided that the development that we've planned, their brokers, their internal and external brokers, were completely satisfied that that building is viable to take to market, even in light of the new zoning, and that is the building that would be built. In other words, the value that they felt that they would get for that building, it was worth it to continue on the path that we were.
Okay, thanks. Let me ask you about affordable housing in this new development. Is there any consideration for it? What have you thought about it? How can we ensure that there is affordable housing in this new development? You do have to go through ULURP, which will come before City Council. And we all know we have an affordable housing crisis in the city and certainly in the district.
Mhm.
So talk to us about that.
So AT&T is not, we're not developing the building. We're getting turnkey administrative approvals, and then we're taking it to market. So as a land use attorney and mostly representing developers in New York City, we're seeing that more and more and more of the buildings, even in Midtown, even downtown, are taking advantage of the FAR bumps and including affordable housing. So, we're in favor of affordable housing. But AT&T is not developing this building. And as any property owner would, selling a piece of property, they want to maximize the potential, they want to maximize the sales price. But this is just capitalism, it's just the way it is, real estate. So the actions before city planning none of them, because we're not looking for a rezoning, where this won't be an MIH, mandatory inclusionary housing area. We're just looking for a plaza with an envelope. And so none of the actions, none of the three require us to provide affordable housing in these buildings. So it would be a voluntary thing. None of the actions that we're going to city planning with either require anything other than an envelope. In other words, we don't have to, we're not getting approved floor plans. We're not getting approved density, no dwelling units. It's an envelope that complies with the zoning as of right, that takes advantage of the zoning bonus. But what AT&T, in thinking about it, what AT&T is willing, I think, to do is, and it's, it's not the, bearing in mind, in lieu of what I just said, AT&T is willing to and will, in their marketing brochures, they are going to include the zoning regulations involving affordable housing, the advantage, the way affordable housing advantages the community, and what we'd like to do, and this is really up to the community board to let us know, we would like to include the community board's contact information and have any prospective developer reach out to the community board so that the community board can sort of be vocal about its intent or its desire to have affordable housing in the building. We're not building the building, and we're not developing it with a bonus that requires affordable housing. So ultimately, it will be up to the developer.
So let me just make a quick point here. You are asking for ULURP approval. You're asking for modifications here. Those modifications will help AT&T market and sell this building and quote maximize the value. I think AT&T needs to consider that approval by the city there should be some return back to the city, and that could be subsidy for affordable housing in the new building as a thought. Or AT&T could, as part of its RFP, require some affordable housing in the bid process. So some suggestions, and I can tell you, given what I know of the community board and city council, that would go a long way. Approvals.
I appreciate that. We hadn't considered the idea, we sort of thought about, but the idea of the affordable housing fund, the subsidy. That this is just a sort of a kickoff meeting.
That's which we appreciate, as said.
It's difficult, I think, it may be difficult, you probably can understand, it may be difficult to require a developer to put affordable housing in the building, because if it's not an affordable developer who doesn't sort of build affordable buildings, they may not be inclined to put affordable housing in that way. And it's ultimately AT&T's objective to sell the property, again, as anyone would, at the highest value. Now, in terms of, but I will, because this is just a sort of hello, how are you kind of meeting, I'll take it back. We'll take it back to AT&T. The other thing I was going to say, and this isn't, I am not being flip, and I'm not being anything other respectful and transparent. One thing that, you know, that these approvals will give back, I guess, to the community is a public plaza. Okay, it's not affordable housing, but whereas the plaza now, it's nice, it is what it is. But in return, the plaza will be open 24/7. I don't know if the requirement is 24/7, it may be, but it will be open at all times, subject to the regulations of, the public plaza regulations, city planning. And it's gonna be a beautiful space, whereas what it is now is a big space, but it was never AT&T's intention to make it a beautiful space. And I'm not saying that compensates your question about affordable housing, but it's something. There is some bit of a give back to the city for these approvals.
All right, teams, so in the spirit of this being a hello meeting, I want to move us along. We're at 7 o'clock. So, Rosa, we had hang on, guys. We had, Laura, we had Vicky, we have Jason, we have Mitch, and then we have Alice. Let's go.
Put the zoning diagram up. I mean, I love these people, but I don't.
Who's
I want-
who's next? Am I next?
We'll put it up. We'll put it up.
Patrick, am I next?
Hold on, Laura, hang on, let me get control here. Rosa,
Okay, are there any special use restrictions on the site?
Can you,
I noticed, recently that, for instance, the Verizon building, was actually a public place. That's special use restriction, which wasn't actually respected when it was sold, and redeveloped. And I'm wondering, this as an infrastructure project, did it have in place a public place or limited use kind of restriction?
the answer is, I can make that one short. So we will be required to comply with all the design requirements, design restrictions, operational restrictions, requirements of the plaza section of city planning for the public plaza. Tree plantings, maneuverability, beautification amenities, but other
The
than,
site itself
Yeah.
does not have any restrictions on use other than
No.
in that zoning?
No.
Okay, okay, great, thank you. What is our guarantee of plaza improvements? And I'm guessing that none of that will occur until after the development is completed of the new buildings.
so city planning will approve this design. And this design is the only design that will be able to be built. Should a developer say, I want to amend this design, developer could amend the design. But a developer will be handed an approval for this design, and that's the design that's the only design that could be built. And yes, it would be developed ultimately by a developer who has to go along,
The
yeah.
entirety of the
Right.
development. Okay,
where you got Rosa?
and I just have one more question, which is that I would actually like to see the special permit.
The what?
You had said that you would share with us the special permit.
I can do that, yeah. I don't have it with me, but I will. Yeah.
Send it through Zach and we'll push that out to
Yeah.
the committee members.
Yeah.
Going on to Laura online. Keep in mind the Knicks started in 25 minutes.
Okay, thank you. So, yeah, just, the plaza, isn't it supposed to have like 2 out of 4 special features, like a fountain and art? Did I miss that?
Rick, you want to take that?
It has the trellis,
Right.
and it has the movable seating. So it has those two, which count. It doesn't have a fountain.
And no artwork and,
It has no one.
and believe I saw it has a cafe opening onto it.
Yes.
That cafe that's not, unless city planning, sort of puts a requirement that space be a cafe, it doesn't have to be a cafe, but it was designed that way.
Well, I think it should be a cafe. I mean, I think there should be a fountain. I think it should have a
we
cafe.
all
I
do.
mean, to follow up on what Richard was saying, we're giving you guys the space, and it's true, it's a really lousy open space right now, but I feel like it could be planted with more native plants, and it could have a fountain, and I think it should have a cafe to animate it, and, I hope it's going to be really well maintained.
We
So,
agree.
We
I
agree
just-
with all that. I mean, the fountain.
well, it looks a little bit in the design looks a little bit kind of manicured. I mean, I think the more native plants and the more kind of natural it can feel, the better. I assume it's gonna have all the like movable tables and chairs and things that are required for a plaza. Is that correct?
Yeah, it has all the movable tables and chairs, it has back seating, it has
Yeah.
seating built into planters, it has seating underneath the trellis. It has, it has obviously this is.
And are there gonna be
It's
any,
not a-
was in addition to the cafe, is it possible there would be like any community uses on the ground floor where they might put out ping pong tables or anything like games for kids or anything to kind of like,
So
animate it more and serve both the youth and the senior population of the community a little bit more?
it could be, and that's Laura, that's why the center of the plaza is more open. Originally, it was more planted. Right? And as we were working through it with city planning, we said, let's create a central space that relates to the trellis that can then be programmed, right? I mean, we don't know if there'll be community, on the, community space on the lower level. Often there is. That would be the goal, that would be able to, the interior would be able to speak to the exterior. We'd have the cafe on the other side. We'd activate it. That's the goal. But, this is the first step.
Let's be
One
clear.
of the things that we also did is intentionally the entrances to each of the residential towers are on the street side, which basically allows us to take the entire frontage of the plaza, that base level, as Rick was describing it, and turn it over to whether it be cafe, retail, community use. And there's also a transparency requirement, which is very, very important. So it's going to be something that's very active, and it'll create the activity along the frontage of the base.
And is that written into the approval of the building? Like, do we know that that's going to happen?
Yeah, it's on.
Is it guaranteed?
And to that point, the maintenance will be on the developer of that property, not AT&T.
Right.
No, but I'm asking about the ground floor uses beyond residential to activate the plaza.
Yes, it's shown that way on the drawings.
Yeah.
Right, but is it, okay, if it's on the drawings, does that guarantee that the next owner does it?
Yeah.
That's part of what they're buying into, that requirement?
Yes.
Yeah, it's a requirement.
Okay, okay, good, okay.
So we have our percentage open. We hope to have community space. We like to have as much retail as possible to activate it.
Okay.
I just wanted to.
Personally, I think you could add more green into that middle. I think it would be nicer, but that's just my opinion.
Had a lot more, but we opened it up so it could be more activated. But eventually we'll do some kind of program uses, so we start to lay that out. We get it.
Okay, all right, that's the end of my stuff. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Laura. Mitch, and then Alice.
Yeah, I just want to piggyback on a few things that Richard said. By my math, especially since you, well, not you guys, you personally, but you guys have been sitting on this for 58 years.
That's my age.
Right, you're still a young man. That the possible give back of Public Plaza in return to the 58 years of crazy inflation is minuscule benefits. It's almost not a benefit compared to, what you guys have been sitting on. And just as far as the building across the street between Blaine and Thomas, Tribeca Tower, is a luxury high-end building, the 50-story building that has an affordable component that has been wonderful. So the developer doesn't have to be an affordable developer. It works in that neighborhood. And the 50-story building across the street is proof of that. It wasn't 50% affordable. I think it was 20 or 25% affordable, but something, and it was a range of affordability. It wasn't like high-end affordable and low-end. It was a range from low to middle. So I just wanted to bring that up in case you get any pushback from any developers that it couldn't work there because it works right across the street. And you mentioned 24/7 in a perfect world, that would be great. The reason why it was closed a few years ago was because of, just from my ears on the street of some unsavory stuff going on in off hours.
Yeah.
And so you guys had to close it
Yeah.
and then just using it for the workers' cars and, which I understand both sides on that. So, and then one other thing, on the Thomas Street side, I'm hoping there's no intent to change whatever the parking regulations on that street are, that you're not trying to change any regulations, that it's just gonna be the way, whatever it is now.
No, no change.
Okay,
No change.
so basically, there is an affordable component in the luxury high-end building across the street, so it does work perfectly in that area.
Did that, can I just ask a real
Yes, sir.
question? They came before you, right? Because they had to get a public plaza also. So did they come before you? That's a story
That-
building.
Well,
Yeah.
that building was there since the,
It's not that old.
you know, I'll tell you exactly, it was there the very, 91, 92.
Oh, so you weren't.
And so I wasn't on the community board then, but I'm familiar with that, I live in that building, and that changed my life around having that component over there. But that plaza was always there, they've made some adjustments over the years, but it's basically been a quiet neighborhood with zero complaints.
Yeah.
From the neighborhood, from the community, from the building, it just worked the way it is.
Yeah.
And I hope it stays like that, but, there should be, I'm sorry, you wanted to say something?
No, I was just gonna say, if they came before you, I'd be interested to know what were the actions to get that building built, because that's a huge village.
You gotta research that yourself.
Yeah, we're not.
Alice's turn.
Wait, hang on, before Alice,
I mean,
I think Mitch raised a really good
research
point
thing.
about the parking, and it might not be, to the place yet. Might be, a little later on in the developer conversation, but
I'm hoping enough.
loading, when he asked about the park, whether the parking would change with those narrow streets. We've seen a lot of developments go up in our area with plazas out front, where then they take it as a loading zone out front. It does change things. Relatedly, what's the plan for making sure things like trash move-ins, move-outs never really occur in the street level? Is that something that is accounted for in this pre-pack or no?
No, well, I'll say, the
that
only
a
thing I
little
can say
later?
is we're only, these actions only speak to an envelope.
So it's a little later in the
It's a
development.
little
Okay,
later.
thanks, appreciate that. Alice?
Yeah, thanks. Some of this, we had seen before. Thanks very much for having also addressed this with Tammy and I earlier, and Zach. Just a couple of questions. It's a little unclear what's going on with the buildings on the east side of the street. I couldn't really see the alignments. How far away are you from those buildings on the east? The zoning allows for, was it 40 feet from those buildings will all have different,
The
Right.
the buildings on Broadway?
no, the buildings on your lot, on the east side of the lot, so the opposite, am I wrong? That's east, right? Yeah.
That's east. Oh, the new
Okay, there we
building.
go. So the building that you're seeing, so you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 facades there that are backed up against, I'm just curious, how many feet between, for example, well.
Oh, I see.
between
So
those
what's
buildings.
so our buildings are built to the lot line, are they, Larry?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're built right to it's just the zone, it's an as-of-right development on our side. It would be, and the envelope would be built to the eastern lot line of the building. Now, that's gonna come pretty close to the rear yard, the edge, the rear edge of the buildings along, that are fronting on Broadway. But it's an as-of-right development, we're not asking for
Well,
any.
I understand it's as of right, and I understand that. I'm asking, how many feet are you giving, if
Do
any,
you know?
between, these buildings are all not in the same plane.
Oh, I see.
So
What-
is there some air, and first of all, are these buildings aware at all of this development that's going on?
Yeah.
Well, I would say first of all, I'd like to say that at some point we may want to run a resolution on this, because I think there's a lot of things that we probably want to say. One of them that I'd want to say is, these people should know, we should know exactly, I'd like to see the diagram of whatever the lot line is, but it's sounding like they're smashed up against a lot of people's homes, so, you know.
I can say to that point, why don't we collect those things in some points for the applicant and see if they're responsive without.
What we could do is we'll overlay the survey on top of the site plan, and then we'll know the exact.
So you can see it.
Right. So, okay, so that's one. And so in that argument about as of right, and we talked about this before, and I'm glad somebody brought it up, I was surprised that didn't come up right up front, which is that this is a potential plan. It is certainly not the plan. Does not have to happen. I think people in the public have to understand that. It's a lovely plan, done a very nice job, but the fact is that this plan could be altered so that it does meet the new city of yes, with all the hurdles that might entail, and that you would have no plaza there. There is no guarantee of a plaza there. You're even nodding your head, yes. And people need to understand that. So I do think this community board should write a note that would go along with your application, saying what we do and don't want to see there. But the fact is, there is absolutely no requirement for a plaza there, and this could get bigger, much, much bigger building there. And so.
I understand.
Well, that's it. correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not wrong on that, right?
And you're saying that there's an as-of-right solution to developing? this
No,
lot?
it's not as of right. It would
No, there's no
require
as-
rezoning.
No,
No,
not at all.
there's, as, with City of Yes, this could, and tell me if I'm wrong, this could be rezoned so that the plaza would go away and you'd have a bigger building. I hate to sound simplistic, but just 2 sentences, that's fact, right?
Yes, that's
Okay.
true.
There we go. That's all. And I just want to make sure we are all aware of that. And it's important that at this point, we understand this is a leasing agreement, like this is not AT&T's development. So we're looking at something that's a maybe. So we're worrying about where the chairs and planters are. It could be there are absolutely nothing. 2, I do think I'd like to just, when in future presentations, acknowledge that though we may all hate this brutalist building or love it, the Warnicki building, in fact, I cannot believe that Warnicki didn't design that plaza. And that plaza does have a history and it is quite lovely in many ways, I would argue. And what it is a lot bigger than what's being proposed. So this idea that this is a given amenity, in fact, for those of us who use that plaza, and I was one of them, it was a grand plaza used by many of us until it closed after, I guess, around COVID 2019. And I think it was part of his design and it was an integral part of the design, hence why you see fully grown trees and quite a bit of groundscaping. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I don't think it was like he built the building and forgot about that lot next to it. So it was part of the overall understanding of the site architecturally, I would argue, and maybe I'm wrong on that. So I just want to clarify those points publicly because I think they're important. And I do think lastly, if Patrick agrees at some point, if it's not tonight, that the community board should consider a resolution on this application or this Bueller proposal that's going before city planning to say what we agree with and what we don't and what we would like to see. I mean, unless other people don't agree.
The only problem with that is the fact that I'm understanding it to be an envelope and almost like just a baby vesting in this property. It's not like, and I like that they came, but I'm also conflicted by like, it's like almost half baked and they're asking for something that like may or may not happen, and we all volunteer our time here, and the likelihood that this envelope gets built unmodified, even once they grab a ULURP, is highly unlikely, because
But
any
all of the-
developer's gonna wanna do their own thing.
But all of the things that we'd like to highlight, the
I
need
think
for
a
green
lesser
space, a
form.
need for plaza, well, whatever,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, some
Just
sort of
because.
recognition.
Just on the process piece of it, like I'm worried that if we dig in a formal way with a resolution,
Right.
we're gonna discourage future pre-applicants or applicants that
Patrick said it the right way.
are coming to us and sharing that with us. They're just gonna say, well, I'll come when my application's good and ready,
Yeah.
and then
They
we'll make the
can.
resolution then. I just don't wanna, I like that we have that sort of cooperative level, and I don't necessarily wanna over formalize it. We don't have to, but.
Ditto.
Okay. I mean, it was just a thought that the community has some say as to what they'd like to see at this site. It wasn't.
John,
pro
that's
or
not
con.
fake. Don't worry about it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, other questions?
Can I make another?
Yes. Yes, I think it's the last one.
So has a developer or a builder looked at your proposal? Because you're proposing 100,000 square feet development
Right.
spread out throughout the whole lot, which to me, it's a lot of building for very little square footage. So it's not an attractive field for a developer to do it. So I think it would make sense to see what is with City of Yes and all the amendments that have come out to see what is the maximum that they can build. Because the building that was referred to, I think 105, is it 105 Duane that has, it's right in front?
It's just across Thomas. Yeah,
So that is 410,000
Yeah.
square feet.
much bigger, yeah.
So that, and it's still considered for resi development with mixed use, it's still considered a small development. So you guys are proposing 1/4 of that. And I think the cost of building it and just getting everything moving, it's not gonna make the deal feasible.
So just to respond to that, AT&T has internal and external brokers, real estate brokers that analyze what we're doing, and we work in counterpart with them. It's their job to make sure that the site, when the development, when it goes to market, gets sold, and it gets sold for a maximum value. So they also in turn have sub-consultant developer type, and not, it's not like, related, but like they have consultants that analyze the marketing and the ability to build the building. So we were guided, there were progress reports all along what do you think of this? What do you think of this? What do you think of this? And it, you know, we're just professionals. I'm a lawyer, architect, and landscape architect. So this is what we came up with, but it was vetted through an internal AT&T process. And AT&T, I mean, doesn't want to lose money. All I'm saying is that, I respect your point, but all I'm saying is AT&T is comfortable as a result of the vetting process that this development scheme would be attractive to the market. And the site is not, you know, that plaza site is smaller than the site across Thomas, the 50-story building, 400,000 square foot. So, you know, thought had to be given to how to best develop the site without impacting the light and air, because the AT&T building is so big. And we didn't want to we wanted to sort of let the site breathe as well. So we considered, you know, that was in the consideration. Also, the last thing I just want to say to Alice is I just want to make clear, and I thought I did say, but if I didn't say it, I apologize, but I know I addressed it, but is that, yes, it's true that a developer, once these approvals are in place, if they ever are in place, the plaza, the envelope, the special permit, the only thing that a developer who buys that building, short of going back to city planning, starting from scratch with city planning, the only thing that they will be able to develop is that approval. This plaza, assuming this is the plaza gets approved, and that envelope. Is there a chance that a developer could buy the site and say, thank you very much, no thank you? Yes, there is a chance. But again, AT&T is, I mean, for what it's worth, it may not be worth it to you. AT&T is comfortable that they are bringing to market a site that is very, very likely to be the site that's developed. And why do they think that? I mean, it's not like they're paying all of us for almost 7 years now, a lot of money to develop, to sort of.
Oh, big disclosure there.
It's got, I'll take it, but the point of it is that it's not, you know, if AT&T didn't think that this was going to be a viable development, we wouldn't have been doing this for the last 7 years. So could someone theoretically come along and say, no, I'm going to start all over, City of Yes? Yes, but we feel, and AT&T feels, this is a perfectly viable development, and that it's much more likely than not that a developer would say, I will invest in this, rather than starting from scratch and going back to city planning and saying, now I want, you know, a 50-story building.
Well, just accept that one thing we talked about was the idea that anybody who was going to promote affordable housing, it couldn't happen in this plan, as you've now confirmed. This is not, this building will have zero affordable housing. If someone wanted affordable housing, they're going to have to go up and out. This could happen if you were to take that site, purchase it, and build it up, right? You could have affordable housing on it.
It could go into that building?
Right.
Probably, may or may not.
Maybe not. I know, I'm just saying.
If it got rezoned, it would, with a bonus, yes, that would be probably required.
Mainly like market rate apartments and commercial business offices and commercial space.
The ground floor would be a retail platform, and on top of that would be 2 residential.
So I'm just hoping, I know that they want to maximize the profits, just hoping that quality of life on the commercial side, on the lower floors, would be considered, even though, you know, whatever influence AT&T has in picking it, giving it to a developer. But that is a concern in the community.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll draw this one to a close. Thank you guys for coming. Really appreciate the preview.
Thank you.
We'll come out to you again as things progress.
Appreciate the candor about
Yeah, no.
compensation and all that.
Thanks for having us. Thanks for spending the time that you
Yeah.
had. So appreciate
This
it.
is a requirement to come to.
Oh, I'm sorry, Tammy.
There's no.
Okay, I just wanted to say thanks to the guys.
Before we submit, we're not in you. Hold on, one second. This is volunteer. Privilege goes to the chair.
Thank you.
Tammy has a question.
So I wanted to say thank you to them for coming and presenting. Thank you for listening to everything that we asked you when you came to us by saying, please don't hide the ball. show us what you're saying and show us what you're selling, so to speak, to the potential developers. And for the board and our community, we may end up choosing to do a resolution to memorialize our wishes, desires, concerns, and preferences in not a negative way, but just to let you know, once this all seeps in, what the community says and feels. And we look at it as a sign of partnership, not as a sign of negativity. So I wanted to say thank you again.
Thanks, Gavin.
Thanks, guys. All right, let's go on.
Go next, again.
Go next. Bricks and mortals, Hunter.
Yeah, I'm gonna run this really quickly because I want you to see that next bit.
Yes.
I have the slides. I'm comfortable just like saying next.
Yeah,
bit.
sure.
I'm
Just go ahead and introduce yourself. Tell us what
You
your
want it?
organization's about for Bricks and
Would
Mortals.
you like to go further up?
And really, don't feel rushed. I mean, I was just
Patrick would never.
trying to.
Oh, is this why? Because of the next thing?
No.
Thank you.
My apologies.
Ma'am?
Going on, it's 7 years of.
It's a lot.
It was excellent. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Those on the committee know it's my nature to sort of
We should
try to
have.
move.
Oh,
It's your
Nice-
job.
Nice
You just gotta
job.
cudgel like that.
Roll your-
Sports, it's okay.
We've been warned by Tammy yet, so you're doing well.
So I'm great. So hi everybody. Thanks for getting to listen to me. My name is Monwer. I'm the program manager at Bricks and Mortals. I started in September. I'm practically part of the furniture now. And I just want to talk to you guys about some of our resources, our programs. If you have anybody in mind, or if you have any ideas in mind, then please feel free to come over. So. And oh. Yeah, so I want to start the story in 2019. We're not that old. We started out of Judson Memorial Church in Washington Square Park. And at that time, a lot of luxury real estate developers actually were taking land that belonged to houses of faith. Houses of faith are often, they're cash rich, they're land poor, and that's very easy, low
Oh, no,
hanging
you mean
fruit
the other way.
for like
Cash poor and land.
cash poor and land rich.
Yes.
And it's very low hanging fruit for any kind of developer to come in and talk to them into a deal. And houses of faith didn't realize that what was happening in Brooklyn was also happening in Queens, happening in Staten Island, Manhattan, and so and so. So many of our current members came together at the Manhattan Borough President's Office to talk about sharing resources amongst themselves and knowledge amongst themselves and communication amongst themselves. So it's really like a grassroots membership organization that gives houses of faith the knowledge, connections, access to resources, and advocacy they need to manage their properties in service of their missions and their communities. They need to understand new realities of the real estate world that are going on, and they need to build resilience and take charge of their destinies and their legacies on their terms. So this is started by houses of faith, for houses of faith. So why are we unique? We are the only faith-based and multi-faith and size inclusive and project inclusive membership organization in New York City. We have members that are both faith-based and real estate-based. We largely work in New York City, but we do tend to work with the state. Sometimes we talk about precedents that happen in other parts of the US. So what our deal is that we are impartial and outcome neutral. That means that we don't recommend a particular firm, a particular game plan. We just kind of provide the list of resources and experts that we verified, and we will offer those same resources to every house of faith, provided they have the same situation. And then it's ultimately up to them of how they're going to conduct their business. We don't get a pay cut or anything like that. So when a house of faith will reach out to us, we sort of talk them through, we ask them what's on fire, what do you need immediate assistance with? And then we ask them about long-term planning. So like, what's your plan? How are you going to deal with your property? How are you going to deal with City of Yes? And we give them the options, we give them the experts, and it's up to them. And our job is to just make that connection, give those resources to them. So how do we work? We work on an accountability loop that is faith-led and facilitates faith-based people. So the way it works is that faith-based members will be approved for membership by our board. And then those new members, in turn, they elect the board of directors for the year. And the new board will then approve of other members. So it's a sort of, everybody is accountable to each other. The board is accountable to the members are accountable to the board. We have a couple of examples here. We've provided assistance to churches in Manhattan who want to create a plan for local law 97. We have advised about space sharing and, the kind of legal issues that come with renting space. And then we had a situation where a church in Brooklyn was literally about to have their electricity turned off in the weekend, and then we had to sort of talk them through and get them on a payment plan. More happens more than you think. So congregations, as you guys know, play a vital role in supporting their communities with food banks, AA meetings, and congregations in New York City are particularly in a very expensive real estate market. And now more and more, we see a decrease in membership, decrease in funding. And I know that you're aware of these issues firsthand, but I just want to give you guys some numbers before. So the average sacred site generates $1.7 million of economic impact annually. There's a Halo study that has recorded all of this. And then Judson Memorial Church, where we started out of, generates $10 million annually. 87% of the beneficiaries are not actually members of the congregation, they're actually the wider community. And within this incoming migrant crisis, 58% of emergency shelter beds they're at houses of faith. Faith-based organizations also deliver 40% of vital human services that are needed: food, shelter, school drives, mental health. And this is like a huge impact to a community. And so then when you look at what's happening post-COVID, you see that congregations are dying, the church is getting smaller. And that means that when the church leaves, then all of their services and their ministries and their resources, they go away with them. So if we look at New York City alone, there are more than 6,000 faith-based properties in New York City. Just to contextualize, that is 2.5 times the size of Central Park. So we have like 2.5 Central Parks in houses of faith. And we have 86 million square feet of available FAR that could give 80,000 homes. We're talking about affordable housing. Many of these houses of faith are in landmark districts, and New York City is very expensive. But, imagine for a second the impact of 6,000 houses of faith serving their communities in the city. So what does this all mean? For the first time, you've got more churches closing than they're opening. And imagine that the average cost of a house of faith is $70,000 to $100,000 for a 10,000 square foot property. It's a lot of money. For now, we are looking at about 75 to 150 congregations closing per week, and by 2030, about 100,000 churches are expected to close or be repurposed in the United States. So then we come in to give ideas, talk about trends, things that are happening within houses of faith or faith-based real estate. You can either share your space with other community groups who are also looking for space in this very expensive market, or you could go for a full or partial redevelopment that could end up with affordable housing or mixed housing. You could do partial redevelopment, straight up sell your property, or think about air rights. So many houses of faith are not even aware that they have air rights to be sold, or that it can benefit people in the long run, their own house of faith in the long run. So how we can help? Really quickly, we have programs and resources for faith community needs. They are community generated, so we answer to their demands of what they want to see. We outreach to a diverse set of congregations across all the major religions in the city. We have relationships with the New York City government, private developers. As I said, we have real estate members in our larger membership, and we work with a nonprofit. We also do advocacy for sustainable solutions, and we are currently the leading community organization that connects faith-based and real estate. members. We had previously worked on the policy platform for the mayor's election in 2021. We're currently doing that now for 2025. We are the chair of the mayor's working group on faith-based affordable housing and community development. And much of what City of Yes came about for houses of faith and for landmarks, we had a big part in making those conversations with HPD, with the city government, and make sure that houses of faith are included in these zoning resolutions. And we are also a part, we've also been talking about the New York State Faith-Based Affordable Act, which is sort of like extending City of Yes on a New York scale, using precedents that have been happening in Oregon, in LA, in California, and other places. Yeah, so far we've had 2 affordable housing summits with Mayor Adams and the Office of Faith-Based and Community Partnerships. We have bi-monthly meetings. So far we have had 19 case studies and 50 public events that are open to the public, for about faith-based property and just about managing their house of faith or managing their nonprofit. We've got monthly newsletters with resources, grant funding, big one, events, opportunities, and we have weekly updates. Our membership is password protected. There's a paywall, and there are some resources that only members can access. We also have a space sharing website called Venuely, which is like an Airbnb for houses of faith, where houses of faith will connect to nonprofits who are looking for office space or programming space in a particular area. We help with grants, grant funding. We have resources, real estate listings. I call it the real estate fork board, where houses of faith can sell can sort of put up their property for lease, and then our developers or our real estate community can then look at the real estate listings and then, maybe come to help them with a development project. And our faith-based property list is just for members only, so you don't risk other developers with unscrupulous practices coming in and taking over essentially very easy to access real estate. What's next for us? The Brooklyn Borough President's Accelerator for Faith-Based Affordable Housing is currently going on in partnership with the Brooklyn Borough President. We are helping houses of faith respond to the migrant crisis. So know your rights workshops, the way people have used space to accommodate the need for beds and food pantries. We have a faith-owned property conference happening in October of 2025. And we are, like I mentioned before, we're developing a policy platform for the 2025 mayoral election, specifically focusing on faith-based issues. So what's next? Yeah, we also have a health assessment coming up, which is a sort of survey. We gauge the strengths of houses of faith. And we have a new member directory where you can see all of our services and our experts based on the category and specialty that they have. So what can you do, Community Board 1? You can, if you are a member of a house of faith or the real estate community, become a member. You can call us and we can talk about membership. Or if you are aware of a faith-based organization in your neighborhood, please refer to us and take advantage of our guidance documents, our case studies, our events, our trainings, and more. Thank you.
Wow. I think you guys have thought about everything. I was just impressed with the number of sort of bases and angles that you all have covered. I think surely, in our community district, one of the largest faith-based organizations is Trinity Church, one of the largest sort of landholders, like we all recognize in New York City. Is that something that is good to connect you guys with, or
We
is
work
there a
with them
supportive?
on
Okay,
a regular basis.
like I said, you guys.
Big donors.
Questions from the committee members? Alice, then Rosa?
Yeah, I'm just curious, how did you come to us? Did you ask to come and present to the community board?
So I've been
good
doing
for you.
very extensive outreach, and I want to make sure that the community organizations, if you know any nonprofits or if you have nonprofits, especially, you should know that this is a resource, and if there's a house of faith whose electricity or heat is about to go off in like 5 minutes, you can call us.
Yeah, it looks like most of your support is from real estate, like Trinity Church, Lily, or not, or the city.
So
But funds did you, I mean,
We have a couple of houses of faith. The Lilly Endowment Program is also, has been really helpful. We have a sustainable sacred sites, S4. So that particular program is funded by Lilly Endowment, and then it's donations and grant funding.
right, I'm curious about one thing that comes up with faith-based initiatives now in terms of City of Yes, and this was something that certainly this community board heard a lot about, or this community, I should say. How do you navigate the obvious sort of, or the very difficult and challenging balance between the needs of any faith-based organization, for example, and the preservation issues that come up? Do you work with preservationists in the city? How do you navigate that?
Yeah, we've been having constant conversations about that. We are affiliated with the Sacred Sites Program in the New York Landmarks Conservancy. We do work with LPC a lot. There is ultimately it's up to the House of Faith what they want to do, but you know, we do talk about the need for, you know, maybe not demolishing a whole building straight up. That's a possible thing. Or like, how do we make a development project environmentally efficient? How do we incorporate details of the past within the new building? How do we pay legacy to the building, the history of the people that were there? These are all things that we can only suggest it. It is ultimately up to the House of Faith that what they want to do. And we do work, a lot of the times I will tell you that houses of faith they need money for certain things. And we always, more often than not, we recommend Sacred Spaces or Landmarks Conservancy as people who can give you the funding and the guidance you need. And they're a preservation organization. So
That's great. I hope you beef up that list because there are a number of organizations in the city that do support the preservation of wonderful monuments and can help do that, and state level as well as city. So I hope that happens more, because I know this is all starting to crop up a lot with legislation, but we don't hear a lot about how do we preserve some of these fabulous artifacts, you know, and reuse them and adaptively reuse them. The adaptive reuse component is so critically important. We don't hear a lot about that. We hear about demolishing, building housing, but not a lot about how do we adapt what's there. And I hope that your organization does that kind of work as well. It's wonderful.
Houses of faith are also like very hesitant to be landmarked. They wouldn't actively go out of their way to be designated because with designation comes a lot of like red tape and a lot of LPC hearings that is very confusing and very scary to them. So it's really, again, it's up to what they want to do in the end, but we can just sort of help demystify what an LPC hearing is. Or sometimes, you know, even local LPC designation is not what people need. Maybe they need to go on the national register, which is that kind of recognition, media recognition, and sort of they can show off their building, but they don't necessarily have to like adhere to LPC law. So there are ways around it, and we just we help them based on the situation that's at hand.
Thanks.
I was just curious if you were happy with where the City of Yes ended up as relates to houses of faith? Or what were your recommendations, and were they all sort of?
Well, they weren't all
incorporated?
I wish they were all taken, but they were, a considerable portion of them have been taken in, and we are still talking with HPD and DCP about how best we can support houses of faith. So far, I think, so the fact is that now with City of Yes, houses of faith and historical districts can transfer air rights further than they could before, which is something, and they've eased the zoning, 7479 resolution. This made it easier for them to transfer their air rights, and especially a lot of faith-based houses are really interested in the idea of affordable housing. So it's just, we've been helping the city government sort of understand that faith-based organizations want to have affordable housing on their property. And, you know, whatever you can do, or whatever way, because there is separation of church and state, so you can't always give special preference to a house of faith, but we do remind them that whatever you can do for a nonprofit building, you can also do for a house of faith, because legally a house of faith is a nonprofit building. And so in that respect, it's like, just making sure that our faith-based rights and their desires for development and serving their community is heard by the city government, because ultimately the houses of faith want to make housing for their community, for the people who come to their ministries. And so we want to really emphasize the community impact of that.
Yeah, thanks for coming. It's really very interesting. Could you elaborate a little bit more on the Brooklyn initiative that you talked about, affordable housing?
So well, my executive director could probably tell you more about that. It's something that's currently in progress. So we have started an accelerator with the Brooklyn Borough President's Office to sort of give advice and training to houses of faith within the Brooklyn area who want to develop affordable housing, but don't really know where to start. So it's like really showing them from the initial planning of like, what does it take to build affordable, what does it take to do a development deal, build affordable housing to like see them through to the end where they have like a solid plan in action. But I mean, you can always email and then I can let the relevant person answer that question.
Great, that's helpful. Thanks.
Other questions? Anyone online? Andy, are you saying, oh yeah, your hand is up, sorry. Hard to see with that background.
Yeah, sorry. I'm kind of purposely in the dark here today. I wanted to ask, there is a new push that has come across from City Council, since we're talking about preservation and house of worship, on and where bricks and mortar stands in terms of this legislation on building height and bulk around houses of worship and what's allowed.
There have been discussions about preservation and selling air rights. I know the preservationists are very afraid of that with the existence of new bulk and new height, it's going to sort of dwarf the landmarks. And we're currently working through it, but I mean, what I can tell you of my capacity is that conversations are happening. And if you'd like to take part in them, maybe.
I'm just asking a little more specifically because you specifically work with faith-based. And although I do think that the name of the legislation, the act, is a little misleading, where it says Faith-Based Affordable Housing Act, right? It's not really about affordable housing. It's about future landmark designations and development. And so that's why I'm asking very specifically, because it's in the bailiwick of what we're talking about here.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misconstrued for the city of Yes. The Faith-Based Affordable Housing Act is for New York State as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
So I think with New York City, the City of Yes laws are a part of the Faith-Based Affordable Housing Act, but it's just to sort of essentially, in principle, the Faith-Based Affordable Housing Act is to extend that kind of zoning opportunity to build affordable housing in the rest of New York State, but then the rest of New York State is subject to the New York SHPO, which I haven't heard. I mean, I haven't had any kind of conversation with them, or they haven't really said anything. And anything that I've heard about like preservation blowback, I've heard from New York City. Nothing about, and I think the FBAHA, the Faith-Based Affordable Housing Act, is conscious of how much housing can be made in like high density areas in the New York State versus low density areas. And there's a certain building height that they can't exceed within New York State under this FBAHA Act.
I mean, obviously, from my concern, is it nullifies local law, right? So, it overwrites any local zoning regulations. So that's why I'm asking, since you work with faith-based organizations in New York City, and specifically in the conversation of affordable housing, where does bricks and mortar stand on FBAH or HA?
Well, the point, I mean, our mission is to just make sure that houses of faith are aware of the pitfalls and the benefits of building affordable housing on their property. So we are you know, we are in conversation with people who support Affordable Housing Act and who have the city of yes, but in order to make sure that we're not like the faith-based affordable housing people, but we're also the maintenance people, we're also the programming people, we're also the like help you with grant funding people, we've made an executive decision to remain neutral on it.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sick. Anybody else online? Anybody else in the room? Seeing none, so.
Thank you very much.
So much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
And, all right, thanks, everybody. We're adjourned.
Thank you, Patrick.
Hey, Patrick.
There you go.
Yeah.